Hi everyone, thanks for joining us for today's meetup. On today's agenda, the local government team will be providing an overview of the new maps and apps that are coming in our June release. Just a reminder, we'll be recording and posting this meetup shortly after the presentation on meetup.com. And during the meetup, if you'd like to make comments or chat with other participants, then feel free to use the chat pod. However, if you'd like to submit a question for the team to answer, then please submit it through the Q&A pod. With that said, I'll go ahead and pass it over to Scott.
Okay, thanks Heather. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, great. Thanks everyone for joining us today and taking some time with us to go through what's new in the June release. We've got a lot of great stuff to show you. And you're gonna hear from most of the team today, and we're just gonna kind of bounce through some of the things that we've been working on and we'll be shipping in the June release. So today we're really gonna focus primarily on the work we've been doing and getting ready for this June release. And then at the end, we want to talk a little bit about, if you're coming to the UC, the user conference, some events and activities we have for the community, and then ultimately start to share with you some high-level ideas of things we're thinking about for the second half of this year. As Heather mentioned, certainly as we're going through this, if you have questions, feel free to stick them in the chat. We're going to try to also take questions in between each demonstration, just so you guys have a chance to ask those questions while the content's fresh in your mind. But if we do start to run a little long, we may cut it off and take them at the end. The other thing that I'm anticipating is that we are probably going to go a little bit past the hour. We've got a lot of things to show you, and we didn't really want to cut some stuff out. And so instead, we just figured if you do have to drop at 3 o'clock, as Heather mentioned, we're recording, and you can go back and watch the end of it at the end. So thanks again for taking the time with us today, and I'm just going to kind of kick it off by saying, we've been working on a whole variety of things for this June release, and today you're going to see some new offerings we've been working on that we're including in the solution offering, some enhancements to existing offerings, and at the same time we've also been doing some work on support and maintenance of the existing solutions, and in particular making sure that all the add-ins that we deliver and the scripts and tools we deliver work in ArcGIS 10.4.1, which will be shipping here pretty soon. And so you'll see kind of a collection of all kinds of different things. We're going to focus today primarily on the new offerings. And really kind of zero in on that, and some enhancements we've been working on as well too. So everything we are going to show you and everything that we ship in each release is documented on this What's New page on the solution site. And so I would encourage you to really kind of keep an eye on that and use it as a destination for the solution itself. It's a great way to see everything we shipped in a given release, and then drill deeper into the solution site documentation for that individual. So, if you miss something today, when the release does come, you'll be able to just really quickly go into the What's New page and discover what is included in this release, and you'll find that there's going to be quite a few things going on. So I'm not going to spend any more time. What I'm going to do now is just stop sharing and go ahead and hand it over to Chris Biscaglia on our team, and he's going to talk about the work we've been doing with administrative areas and some data management workflows for those. Go ahead, Chris.
All right, thanks. Just give me a second here to set up. All right. Scott, can you see my screen okay?
Looks good, Chris. Looks good.
Okay.
Yeah, I can see it.
Great, great. Thanks a lot. All right, so today I just want to talk a little bit about our administrative areas solution offering, which is going to be new in the June release, as Scott mentioned. And it's really around data management workflows, so data maintenance and editing workflows. And what we wanted to do is really help states and local agencies maintain their authoritative administrative areas. And what we wanted to do is actually support this in a web-based or feature service-based solution that allows you to manage those different types of admin areas. And I'll talk more about those in a little bit. We also wanted to support ArcGIS Pro and some of the new capabilities they've introduced for editing, specifically aligning edges and aligning things together, which are very useful for these workflows. And we also wanted to make it flexible enough to be deployed by cities, counties, or even state level. Actually, what's unique about this solution is you could actually have it hosted at the state and have cities and counties interact with it in that way. So why is it important? It's a question that we get a lot when we're developing our solutions. Why are we doing it? And we work with customers, we work with business partners of ours to figure out what we're going to build. But really why it's important is because federal funding. There's some responsibilities around managing these admin areas, and there's federal funding available for it. Where does your child go to school, and how are the funds allocated to those different school districts? Where do you vote? So, we're going to talk a little bit about elections today. Where do I go to vote? And that's, of course, restricted by a boundary. Who responds to 911 incidents and calls? And then how do you organize service delivery? So where's my trash pickup? What days do I have trash pickup? And that kind of thing. And we developed this offering in conjunction with Nancy. So if you don't know Nancy, please reach out to her. She's a wealth of knowledge in this area. And we work closely with Nancy to develop this schema, not only the schema for the admin boundary solution, but also the workflow. So how you interact with this in a service kind of oriented way. So we work closely with Nancy on it. So without further ado, I'll just got to jump out to a demo. And like I mentioned before, this solution offering works in ArcGIS Pro. And so what you're going to get when you get this solution in June is a series of maps that help you organize the content, but also some focused definitions, service definitions to allow you to bring that content in and then load your data into that format, the admin boundary schema. So what you're seeing here are a series of maps organized for geopolitical areas, elections, school districts, public safety, and public works. And what I'm going to do, just to kind of show you what the solution offering is and how it works, is focus in on the schools for a little bit. So what you see are a series of different types of districts, and we broke it out that way to make it simple, but also organized in a way that it can be very easily served as a service. And so what you see are consolidated districts, secondary school districts, elementary districts, attendance zones, and then some reference layers. So how do I actually bring in my parcel data to make sure things line up, and any other reference layers that you might need when you're actually managing these layers. So I've created a quick bookmark here of a pretty common scenario where a school district's not aligning very well with, in this case, my parcel edges. And you can see the dash boundary for the high school attendance zone not lining up at all with my parcel boundaries. And so some of the tools that they've introduced inside of Pro are really useful to kind of address these problems. One of those being the Align Edge tool. And this tool allows you to actually go in and quickly identify the edge that you want to update. And you can see the dash line representing where I want the new boundary to align to, and the solid one being the one that I want to move. And so if I actually click here, you'll see quickly, I actually did it the opposite way there, but you'll see quickly that now we've aligned. Let me undo that one, try it again. What I actually want to do is align the school boundary to the parcel, not vice versa. So I'll go ahead and move my cursor to the one I want to keep, and then it aligns that school boundary to the parcel edge. So these are just a couple of the tools that are available inside of Pro that are really going to ease this workflow. And again, these tools work against feature services. So in theory, you could have a purely hosted admin boundary layer data set managed inside of Pro using the new alignment tools. And that's one of the major great benefits for going this direction. And also, like I mentioned, the state could actually host some of these layers, and the local govs could actually update it, which eliminates any of the data aggregation workflows that you might have implemented in the past to push data back and forth and share content that way. So that's just a quick sneak peek at the admin boundary solution, and we'll take a couple questions as we move over to Chris Fox, who's going to talk about mosquitoes. But I'll go ahead and stop presenting now.
So far, Chris Biscaglia, there hasn't been any questions. So.
Okay. Well, if there's anything that comes up during the rest of the presentation, make sure we bring it up. Or if things just come up, you have additional questions about Pro or how it works, we'll try to answer those as well. But I'll hand it off to Chris Fox.
Thanks, Chris. Can you guys see my screen all right?
Yeah, we can see your screen and we can hear you.
Great. Yeah, so I wanted to take a little time to talk about mosquito control and our offerings that we're going to be delivering in the June release. Mosquito control is something that's been more in the news lately, especially because of the Zika virus. It's something that's getting a lot of attention. And mosquito control agencies are very involved in working and understanding the spread of vector-borne diseases and how they can reduce the likelihood of that being transmitted to humans. Another aspect of mosquito control agencies is just providing a public service. Mosquitoes are a nuisance. People don't like to get bit by them. And even those mosquitoes that don't spread diseases, they're annoying to deal with. So mosquito control is very interested in working with the public and understanding the problems that exist in the community. So we wanted to deliver a series of maps and apps that could help mosquito control be more effective in the services that they're delivering to the community. And this is going to be through citizen engagement maps, so maps and apps that allow citizens to report problems or also learn more about what mosquito control is doing on a day-to-day basis. Maps that allow mosquito control to go out into the field and either investigate problem reports or conduct and do treatment on particular mosquitoes, so doing adulticide treatment or larviciding treatment to reduce the mosquito populations. There's planning applications, so when they're planning their activities revolving around adulticide and larvicide operations, knowing what areas they're going to go to and what type of chemicals they're going to use when they get there. And then also doing mosquito surveillance, so understanding the populations of various types of mosquitoes in different areas in the community, as well as understanding where they're finding positive results for these vector-borne diseases. So let me go ahead and jump into the demos so you can see some of the apps that we're planning to deliver. This first app is the Mosquito Service Request app. It's a configuration of Crowdsource Reporter, and it allows citizens to submit requests regarding mosquito activity or sites in which are common for mosquito breeding areas, areas where there's standing water or catch basins that have a lot of debris in them might result in more mosquitoes breeding and resulting in greater amounts of mosquito populations. So what we can do in Crowdsource Reporter in the Mosquito Service Request application is as a citizen, I can submit a new report. I can fill out some information about the issue. So I'm having problems with mosquitoes at my location. I can indicate if I'm the property owner. I don't have any dogs, and there's no restriction on my property. So mosquito control doesn't have to worry about anything if they're going to come and treat my location. And then I can go ahead and add my address or search for my address and report it. And that goes into a feature service that then is available on the back end through the Mosquito Service Request Management application. This is an application that's used by Mosquito Control to triage those requests. So I can look at the incoming request, anything that has a status currently submitted, and I can edit those and look at the information that was provided by the customer. I can then assign them to a particular district or a truck that might go out and service it or investigate it. I can also update some information about it that might be helpful for the field workers when they're investigating the issue. So this is the triage aspect. Now we want to look at the field operations component of this process. And for that, I'm going to be using a configuration of Collector for ArcGIS that's working on that same service layer. So here now I'm a mosquito control agency field worker. I'm responding to one of those requests. I've gone out into the field and I've gone to the particular address and I can see information about the request. I can edit that request, and after I've made contact with an individual, for example, if I've contacted the citizen and we've had a conversation, I can enter that information in there. I can indicate whether it was a justified complaint, if there were mosquitoes or there was a problem. Any information about the types of mosquitoes that were found. The species is very specific. Specific types of mosquitoes spread specific types of disease, so having that type of information is very useful. If I would recommend treatment, so this could feed into another application later where we're planning spray operations. Or in some cases, I'm just going to go ahead and treat on site, and they'll do hand spraying and spray and try to kill the mosquitoes at that site to bring some relief to the citizen. And I can summarize that in any resolution information, and that then closes out that service request, and I can move on to the next item. So that's some of the apps surrounding the service request aspect. Next, we get into some of the spray planning. In the industry, we call this adulticide. So we're spraying to try to kill or reduce the amount of adult mosquitoes that are flying around and biting people. So here is the Mosquito Adulticide Planning application, which is a configuration of ArcGIS web app builder using the Smart Editor widget that we're releasing in the June release. In this application, I can have information about my open service request, and if I have some density here, I can sketch around those requests and just say, let's go ahead and send the truck out and spray all around these areas. So if I sketch around there and finish that, and then I can attribute it with some information. So we're going to go out in the truck, enter any information about the district that that belongs to. Let's go ahead and do that Friday. We're going to use a particular type of chemical, and we're responding to some mosquito requests. I can save that, and now I have a planned spray area. I can use this information to pass out to my field workers who are going to go on site so they have some information about where they're going to be spraying. Let's say we just got back from a spray operation. We completed it. We can go ahead and populate this with an actual spray date. I have some future dates here, so I'll just plug something in. So when I commit that, now that's an actual spray area, so it's removed from my map, but I still have it in that feature service. It's historical. I can go back later at any time and query for those areas that we actually sprayed on. So that's useful if any citizens ever come and ask, when did you spray near me, or if there's any need to report this information up to a higher authority of what spray operations you've done in the past, you have all that information available. So the next aspect is, from these spray areas, the general public, citizens are often interested in knowing where has spraying occurred or when is spraying going to occur near me. So this is the Mosquito Spray Areas application, which is a configuration of Web App Builder and the Near Me widget that allows a citizen to go in and around their address or their place of work, they can find out if there are any planned spray areas in the near future or any information on recent spray areas or recent sprays that occurred near them. So I'm just going to go ahead and click on this map, and over here it's going to say that there was a recent spray area. I can click on that item and I can get a highlight of the spray. It said it happened on August 19th. That's the one that I just edited in the last app and marked it as an actual spray area, and any comments that were associated with that spray. So this is useful for mosquito control to make available. If citizens go to this application first, type in their address, and if they have any problems with mosquitoes, they may see, oh, they're going to be spraying near me next Friday or in a couple weeks. So maybe I can tolerate it, or maybe I still want to submit a spray request if it's so bad. So this is a self-service application for citizens. Another self-service application is some people don't want to be sprayed. So there's that other aspect of don't spray me because I have sensitivity to the adulticide that's being used, or because I'm doing organic farming or I'm raising bees on my property and I don't want the adulticide to impact that or kill any of the bees that I'm trying to raise. So this is an application that's available for citizens. That's a configuration of GeoForm that allows you to to submit a request to not be sprayed. The last big aspect that mosquito control is interested in is conducting surveillance. So understanding where the mosquitoes are, how many of them are out there, and what type of mosquitoes are in given areas. So this is the mosquito population surveillance application that allows mosquito control agencies to set up surveillance sites or test sites. Basically, they create traps that trap mosquitoes, and then they go out once a week or every couple of weeks and get the traps, return the mosquitoes back to the lab, and they do counts based on the species. So using this application, I can go out to the site at a particular location. After I've brought them back to the lab and I've done my counts, I can add a new test result here with the date that I collected the sample, and then populate the count by species of mosquitoes that I found at that location. And that adds a related item to that feature service. I can then use the mosquito surveillance application to create some charts that show me information about the mosquitoes over time by species at those given locations. So this is using Web App Builder and the related tables chart to show me information over time, the count of this particular species at that location. So I can look at different locations and compare the number of mosquitoes that were found, as well as look at different species at that same location. And here I'm indicating the common name for the mosquito and some of the diseases that that mosquito is known to be a vector for, that it's known to spread. And ultimately that can feed into this last application, which is the Mosquito Disease Tracker, which is a configuration of Web App Builder and that Smart Editor widget as well that's being released in June. So this application allows me to record and document locations of positive results for vector-borne diseases and the carrying agent for those diseases. So for example, at a given surveillance site, I may have captured some mosquitoes and sent some of them off to the lab. And sometimes those mosquitoes come back positive for a particular disease. In some cases, citizens find dead birds, which they submit to the health department, and those birds are tested for these diseases, and they may come back positive with the disease. Or mosquito control agencies will use sentinel chickens that they put out in particular areas where they know are a lot of mosquitoes, and those chickens will get bitten by a mosquito and test positive for the disease. So all this, we're tracking those locations and the diseases that are found. And we can use the Mosquito Health Concerns application as a public information map, or a map that's used to report within the organization to stakeholders of those locations where we've received or found positive results of particular vector-borne diseases. So this application is using Web App Builder and the Info Summary widget to show nicely on the map and in this panel how many instances of the disease we found. And we can expand the counts, and we can click on individual items and get the pop-up along with the date at which that disease occurred. So here I've added some comments. In this particular one, we had a surveillance site where we were capturing mosquitoes, and it came back positive for West Nile. So with that, that's a summary of what we're looking to deliver with mosquito control. The last thing I want to really highlight that I forgot to mention at the beginning is all of these solutions that we're delivering in the June release are completely hosted. So all you need is a subscription to ArcGIS Online. You don't need ArcGIS Desktop. You don't need server. You can spin up all these applications and services directly from ArcGIS Online. And they're designed in such a way that you could deploy them all if you wanted to do all of this, or you could deploy individual parts. If you just want to do the service request and maybe some surveillance, you could just deploy those applications and it would work fine alone without the complete solution. So with that, I think we're going to take a couple questions, and after that we're going to turn it over to Walt, who's going to be talking about community events.
Chris, we did have one question. It basically, I believe it was Crowdsource Manager. Is there any way to have the person doing the triage get an email when a new request is submitted?
Yeah, so we actually document, and we'll have that available in the Mosquito Service Request solution, how to use a GeoVent server to notify you, to send you an email when a new request is submitted. So that workflow will be documented, and you'll be able to follow that to get that type of notification.
Great. Chris Pascagula, can you answer a question?
Sure.
Justin had a question regarding about the Line Edge tool. Is that only available in ArcGIS Pro?
There is an alignment, there's an Align to Features tool in ArcMap, but the Align Edges tool that I showed is only available in Pro. There's also a new tool very similar to Align Features that also exists in Pro. I didn't show it. So there's two alignment mechanisms and tools to use in Pro that are really, really nice. So you can use Align Features in ArcMap, but those other two tools are available in Pro only.
Great. And another question for Chris Fox. The Smart Editor widget that you showed, does it work with related tables? Do you know?
It works with attachments, so you can create and modify attachments. I'm not sure if you can edit related records using that widget. Does anybody else on the call know?
I'm not sure either, Chris. I know they were adding support for editing related records, I believe, in the June release of Web App Builder, but I don't know if the widget handles it. Not sure.
Okay, we can get back to you,
Yep.
Matt. Great. That's all the questions for now.
Okay, I'll share my screen here, and then you guys can see what we're working on for community events. One of the things we wanted to kind of go over here a little bit about is some of the work we've been doing over the last few months, or I guess it has been, regarding community events. One of the things we have realized is that community events have become a pretty big, important part of local economy for many communities, and we see the need to be able to make that process for managing those events much more efficient. So as you can see here, it's very much like the Mosquito Control set of apps. We've created a series of maps and apps that support that entire process, and it takes you all the way from the initial permit request all the way through sharing that information with the public. As you can see on the screen here, there's a series of applications that I'm going to show you here in more detail in a minute. But before I do that, I just want to mention that we have worked, as the other guys mentioned, with some communities around the country, including Austin, Texas, Virginia Beach, and Henrico County, Virginia, in developing a set of requirements to meet the needs of those particular organizations that we think can also be used by other organizations around the country as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump out here and just show you where what that looks like. The first one we're going to start off with is the events permit application, and this application can be used by event organizers to submit a community event permit request to an internal event management organization, such as a city or something. It is a configuration of the GeoForm, and then it can be used to capture that permit information. So as we walk through it here, you can see I have things like the event name, the type of the event that it is. We can give some information about, the description and the website and so on when I submit the application. Address and location information as well as contact information can be put in here as well, such as the start and end time and date. But you can also add some questions in here, whether or not it's going to be an annual event, it's going to be open to the public, whether there's going to be food or alcohol, and so on. So there's a series of questions that can be asked to the individual organization that's going to be sponsoring or making the request for their permit. And then we scroll down here, you can see we've added a couple other things where they can attach an event map if they have one. And this is typically what we see in most organizations, that the event permit has an attachment like a map like this, and it may not be so easy to be able to work with because you can't really tell where it's at. But we see this quite often. And what we're trying to do here with this process is collect all the information in one spot, be able to feed it to the event organization so they can manage it. So once the event organizer comes in here and specifies the address where they want the event to occur, and they go down here and submit the entry, then it'll show up on the event organizer's organization site. And the first thing you'd want to do is create a site map, typically. So as you can see here, we have a configuration of the web app builder. It's very similar to what you've just seen with Chris's examples. It's using the Smart Editor as well, and allows you then to be able to add information or edit information according to the permit request. In this case here, you're seeing is an event route for a walk, the one that we've submitted the permit for. All the information is on there, and as we zoom in here a little bit, you can see there's more information regarding the location of that particular event, where it's going to begin, and so on. But quite often with large events like marathons or parades or whatever, you don't want to see all that information until you zoom in a little bit on it. But then using the Smart Editor, I can go in here and capture preset some of the values about the information. And as I go up and add some more information, I'm just going to add this volunteer service and copy it here on this particular building and save it. Then it allows me to go in and grab the next feature, and I can select whatever feature I want, like a route here or an area and so on. And then assign the same information to that particular feature for that event, so it makes it a little bit more efficient. So what I'm doing here is I'm just adding to the information that was already submitted through the event permit, and then create the site map. So this site map, of course, is in ArcGIS Online. Everybody that has access to this particular map through a set of groups, will then be able to see that particular event map. So the next step in the process then is for this site map then to be reviewed. So the events permit review application allows an event departments within the city to be able to look at a permit request and the site map as well, and see if they would approve or not, or what information they would need. So what I can do is I click on this particular one. This is the location where the walk is going to occur. Again, I get all the information that was originally submitted to the GeoForm application on the app. If there is an attachment, as there was in this one, it would show up here. And then I can look down here and see the other departments that have already commented on this permit request and what instructions that they supplied and whatever action is taken. And at this point, if I want to, then I can come in here as one of the reviewers, select my department. Let's say I'm with fire department and I want them to add something in there. I can put some comments and add some instructions. And then if I wanted to, I can either approve, deny, or just say it's under review or something like that. So I could submit that request as well. And then I come over here, then I can see the information, and if I just refresh my browser here, you'll see I can get information as it's submitted to the particular request or the site map. So as I zoom in here a little bit on it, then you'll see that volunteer services that was just added to the map. So now it's no longer static, it's part of an interactive process. So as the organizer or somebody else in the process, another department reviews it, I would be able to see that information as well as one of the reviewers. Okay, so we have the permit request that's been submitted. I have a site map, there's some details that's been listed on here and updated, and I have some reviews that have been submitted in here. Typically what happens is there is an event organizer that works for the city that wants to be able to see that information as it comes in. And again, they would use the event coordination application, which is very similar to the site map. It's a configuration of web app builder, and it has the Smart Editor and some other things that make it very helpful. But what it allows them to do, in addition to be able to add their own features in here, they can also take a look at what comments have been added in by some of the other reviewers. They can look at some of the assets or the features that have been added to the event as well when they've been added. And if there's been instructions that have been provided back out to the organizer or the sponsor, they would be able to see if those changes have been made or not, and let the rest of the reviewers know that those changes are available. And so it manages that whole process. The last thing you'd want to do is you probably want to communicate that information out to the public once the event has been approved, once it's gone through its process. All the information has been collected. And so we've developed a couple different ways that you can communicate that information. And one of them is through what we call the Events Map Gallery. And this is a configuration of the Maps and App Gallery application, if you're not familiar with it. And it's a group application that allows you then to create individual maps for each event. So let's go into our MS Walk that we've been looking at so far. And here we can see the route. where the route is at, and as we zoom in, of course, then we can see details of where it's going to be at. So as a participant of this event, it might be important for me to find out some more information about when it's going to be and so on, and I can include what other information I want to in this event. What makes it nice about this particular gallery is I can simply click out and click into another event real easy and see it in the same format and get additional information about that particular event if I'm interested in that, like where do I need to park or what streets are going to be closed and things like that. So I can click on this information. It's a nice way to communicate that information because it allows you to control what information you want to go out to the public, and it allows you to give them more immediate feedback on that as well. So that's a little bit of an overview of some of the applications. I also want to show you that when this gets released next month, you'll be able to come into a page like this one under ArcGIS for Local Government. We're going to put it under the Emergency Management Community, and then there'll be a page that will be dedicated for all the different applications. And very similar to what Chris just mentioned about the Mosquito Control apps, each one of these applications then can be implemented by itself independently or together as a complete solution for the entire workflow. And as Chris mentioned, either you don't need desktop. We have a service catalog with some predefined feature services that you'll be able to spin up on your org, and then instructions how you can come in here and configure each one of these applications in your environment. So that allows you to be able to, allows you to spin it up pretty fast, get up to speed and running on these applications. So that is a little bit about some of these applications that we have available. Now, before I turn it over to Allison, I want to see if there's questions about community events we should discuss.
There was one that Scott had responded to, but it was basically how does it work when one event space but multiple events on different days? How does it distinguish between different events on different days?
Yeah, so
How do you
each
do that?
event, right, each event then has a time when it's submitted, of course. There is a date and time that it's been submitted in here. And then in addition to that is one can come into the applications, each one of these applications, and decide which event you want to see. As you saw with the event reviewer application, I could go in here and say I want to look at this one, and it's just selecting out what event I'm looking at. So if they happen to be on the same date, I would be able to just filter on that individual event. So I can see that one. And then a couple of things you probably should know about is that in the next release we will include this new group filter, which is a very handy application that allows me to say which particular event I want to look at. So if I want to look at the St. Patrick's Day and happens to be at the same day as the other one, I would be able to apply that and take a look at that application as well as the MS Walk, and also make sure that it's persistent with the other ones. So I'll just zoom over here and then you can see the St. Patrick's Day. One of the things that's
good,
really
Walt.
handy with it.
I answered the.
Sorry.
I was going to say it's good, Walt. I answered the question the same way.
Okay, that's good. That's nice.
Yeah, it's always good, right? When we both have the same answer.
But it's very helpful. So there's a couple different ways to answer your question. There's a couple different ways to do it, and this is one of them.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
There's one question that maybe the whole team can answer. Smart Editor widget has come up a few times. How does it compare to the existing Web App Builder Edit widget? Does anybody want to take that one?
Well, why don't you
Sure.
talk about how maybe you and Chris can each talk about how you're applying it, and that'll really lay it out. Or
Yeah, so the Smart Editor widget, right? That's what we're talking about.
Yep.
Yeah.
The thing that we're using it for here is it allows us, a couple things. One is it allows us to be able to select out which type of asset we want to be able to add. First of all, right up here, so I can set up feature templates. As I mentioned earlier, in the services that will be available to you, there are several feature templates, so you can scroll through the list here and pick out which things in which template. So that's one thing. That's one difference between it and the existing editor. But one of the big things I like about it is it allows you to set preset values. So then the end user can come in here, type this information in one time, and then as they go into the map, they can simply just add in additional information without retyping that. And that's one of the differences between the Smart Editor and the existing editing widget that's out there. So there's probably a few other details. I don't know, Chris, if you've noticed anything else, but those are the ones that that's how I'm using it, and it makes it a lot more efficient, especially for this particular situation.
Yeah, one of the things I like is the way when you edit existing records, it shows the attributes in the panel rather than the pop-up on top of the map. So it keeps the editing experience all in that panel, which I think makes it a nicer experience when you're doing that type of editing.
Right here. Yep.
Yep. And then doesn't it also, you guys,
It also has
so when you create, oh, go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, I was going to say that there's additional options that you can specify, whether you want to only allow updates. You could previously disable geometry edits, but you can also optionally configure whether you can delete features or not. So there's more configuration options that allow you to specify on the layer what type of edits you can make. Yeah, and what you were about to say, Scott, it allows you to it doesn't, the current edit widget, when you create it, it creates the feature and then you update the attributes, and that's an update to the geometry. It's maintaining all the edits temporarily in a cache, and it only commits them once you hit save. So you're able to create the geometry and make the attribute edits in a single operation.
Yep.
Yeah, so here is some of the configuration experience that you'll look when you author the app.
Yeah. The other thing that's really powerful, I think it made it in the final dev version too, is you can set up like almost smart forms too, with a little bit of action in them. So if you pick one value, you can say, okay, then populate the next 3 values too.
That's right.
Yep.
Very good. Okay, I think that covers it for me. So I am just going to sharing.
And you're up next, Allison.
Yep, I'm ready. Just waiting for, there we go. Can you see my screen?
Yep.
Perfect. Okay, hi everybody. I'm Allison Muse. I do a lot of the work on our team for ArcGIS Online web app templates, and we have some very exciting changes in the June release to our ArcGIS Online and Portal crowdsourcing apps. All 3 of these apps, Crowdsource Polling, Crowdsource Reporter, and Crowdsource Manager, are for collecting information from stakeholders and managing that information once it's been collected. And all 3 are, as I mentioned, currently available as part of Online and Portal. So today I'm really going to be focusing on the changes that are coming to those apps in the next release. Let's get started with Crowdsource Polling. This app is an app with many, many uses. The original use case for this app was collecting stakeholder or assessing stakeholder sentiment on proposals or events, things like collecting feedback on proposed land use or zoning changes or environmental assessments, things like that. But I've also seen this app used to collect inspection reports on infrastructure and facilities because of its ability to view and sequence all of those submitted reports. From a technical perspective, this app is really just providing you with a way of creating records in a table that are related to one of the features in the map. This release, we've made relatively few changes to polling, mostly minor bug fixes and a few enhancements for things like the ability to include the time as part of a date on the submission form, and also the ability to configure the help window to display as a splash screen when the app loads. Moving on to Crowdsource Reporter. This is an app that's useful for collecting reports and feedback from stakeholders, again, on a variety of topics. You can think of it as an app that can act as a one-stop shop, for example, for all of your city's 311 citizen problem reporting type needs, or for your environmental agency to crowdsource reports of invasive species, or even as a way to solicit suggestions for community enhancements, things like where would you like to see a new bike lane. So with this next release of Crowdsource Reporter, some of the changes we've made is you'll be able to draw the location of a report in either of the maps in desktop view. So this works on a smartphone as well, and in that case you only see this smaller map on the form. But when you're working on a bigger screen, sometimes it's nice to be able to draw in the location of your report in the larger map space. So we've added that capability. We've also added a configuration option for you to set these headers in the form to be whatever text you'd like. So maybe for your workflow you have specific headers that would make a lot more sense, and you can change those up here, or maybe you'd like to number them so it's step 1, step 2, step 3. It's completely up to you what you'd like to put in those headers. Third thing we've done is
we have added another configuration option for storing the text that people are using to find the location they'd like to submit the report. So when, as Chris showed earlier with his Mosquito Reporter, you can search for an address in here, or you can just draw a feature on a map. A lot of what we've heard from people with regards to the searches, they want to have stored in an attribute on the feature what people have searched for. So if they've searched for Springbrook Prairie Forest Preserve, that information can be more valuable than the coordinates that are tied with the geometry of the feature itself. So it'll store that text. It'll also attempt to reverse geocode a feature if instead of searching, your user just draws a feature on the map. It'll attempt to reverse geocode the location of that feature and save the address. And finally, the last thing we've done for Reporter is add the ability to display non-editable layers as supporting information along with each of the editable layers in the map. So currently the app only displays one editable layer at a time with a base map, of course, but we've heard from you guys that there's many workflows that would benefit from other supporting dynamic content, things like the locations of trails for reporting issues in a park, or even sometimes the ability to see the locations of other reports that have been submitted in other layers. This was one of the most requested enhancements for this app, so I'm really happy to tell you guys that it is coming in the June release. And finally, Crowdsource Manager. So this app has had a total overhaul this release, so I'm going to open it up and actually show you what we've done. So Crowdsource Manager is an app for triaging and updating reports that have been collected using other apps, such as Crowdsource Polling, Crowdsource Reporter, Collector, Survey123, or even your custom data collection applications. You can use it to review report info, supporting documentation that was submitted along with it, things like images and charts that are part of that report, and also to update attributes, for example, to assign the report to a person or department, or to update the priority or the status of that report. So as with the current Crowdsource Manager application, when it loads, you first have to choose a category to begin. These categories are actually maps that have been shared with a group in my organization, which is similar to how Reporter works. And the application has been configured by sharing a group rather than a map. So I'm going to choose, come on, I'm actually going to choose my mammals layer here. Look at some locations of endangered species that have been reported. So now I can choose a report by clicking a row in the table, or I could select a feature from my map. Let's look at this eastern wood rat report that came in. So as I click that report, you'll see it loaded the report details down here in the lower left-hand corner of my screen, and I can resize this window. If this was a really long report, it would give me a little bit more real estate. And I can look at if there was any PDF files or zip files or anything that had been submitted. They would show up here at the bottom, and I could click on them and view them. And I have a media tab now where I can go through and look at photos that have been submitted along with that report. I can also click on the pencil, update some attributes of that report. Or let's say I wanted to update the attributes of several of these features, and I can do that now. We've added batch updating capabilities. So I have two reports here that are marked as submitted, and let's say I have heard that we've actually validated both of those. So I'm just going to use Control-Click and select both records, and you'll notice that the lower left-hand corner toggled immediately to an editing screen. I've got no more tabs up here. Any edits that I perform here will then be applied to both of those features. You'll see that it's populated the status field already because the status for both of those reports is the same. I can update that to validated, say save, and it's going to warn me that I am updating two features. Say OK. And just with one click, then I was able to update the attributes for all of the selected reports. Let's say I really only want to look at the eastern wood rat reports that have come in. That's my animal of interest. We've added filtering. So I can click the filter icon, come in here, choose just my eastern wood rats. In fact, I can even go one step further and adjust to see just the eastern wood rats that have come in within a specific time frame. These guys are both very close in date. I don't know if I can get a point in between them, but you get the idea. There's a time slider here, and it will filter the features on the map and in the table as well. To clear that, I just click the X. One other change that we've made I come back to my bench locations. I'll choose this report. So this layer has a related table associated with it. So you can see I have a comments layer that's come in with one comment. And I now have the ability to update attributes on those related records. Currently, the only other application in the ArcGIS Online sphere that allows you to do this is Collector, so we've brought that and exposed it in this web app template as well. We heard this as a popular request from users who wanted to do some spam filtering on comments that may have come in through Reporter that were sensitive or inappropriate or old, and you could come in here and update the attributes on that related record to hide or even to expose that record in Reporter or other applications. So all of the changes I've shown today are coming in the June release of ArcGIS Online and the 10.5 release of Portal for ArcGIS. So if you've already configured an app in ArcGIS Online using one of these three templates, you're automatically going to get pushed this update when ArcGIS Online releases in a couple of weeks. And if you're interested in getting your hands on the code sooner to implement it locally, or if you can't wait for the 10.5 release for Portal, the code will be updated on GitHub at the same time as that ArcGIS Online release as well, so you can go and grab it from there. Were there any questions that came in, Heather?
No, there wasn't any questions regarding crowdsource apps.
Perfect. I'll hand it over to Lindsay then.
I think you're still on mute, Lindsay. Still can't hear you.
Heather, do you have the ability to unmute people?
That is a good question. I probably do, but there are quite a few phone numbers below. Let me see.
There's only one 909 that's still muted.
Let me see. No, no, I can't.
Let's do this, Heather. Let me finish up, and then Lindsay we can try to get her to get off, and then we'll come back to her.
Actually, there's a question. Did you want to take that?
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah.
There's no way to edit attachments within Crowdsource Manager, but you can download those attachments and edit them.
And then there's
It's purely viewing. Rotating is an interesting idea, though. I wonder if we could do that.
Yeah, that definitely is, Allison, right? Because people want to then triage all of those that are coming in.
Yeah, and when you take a picture with your phone, sometimes it takes it 90 degrees off from what you think it is.
Yep.
That's a good idea.
Exactly.
Thanks, David. I'm going to put that in as an enhancement request.
Mary,
so let me just... Oh, go ahead, Heather. Yeah, go ahead.
I was like, can anybody hear me? For the crowdsourcing, you mentioned it could be used for survey 1, 2, 3. Can you provide an example? Is that something that you mentioned?
I don't have one off the top of my head, but all Crowdsource Manager is doing is consuming a map with a feature layer in it, an editable feature layer. So how that information got into that feature layer is really irrelevant. Survey 1, 2, 3 is just an example of an application that allows you to create those features.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Allison, right? I mean, you could have all kinds of apps on the front end. Chris and Walt both showed a couple different ones, Geoform, Crowdsource Reporter, could even be Collector and stuff that's coming out of the field from field workers. And you're using this to quality control it and then update some things. So there's a whole variety of ways you could use that. So while Lindsay's working on her mute issues, let me just wrap up with a few other things we've been working on that we didn't have time to demo today, but we wanted to make you aware of. And I'll start with capital project tracking. So this is a continuation of the work we released last year for capital project planning and really rounds out the capital improvement planning solution. It focuses this time, well, last year, if you remember, we really focused on the definition of capital projects, the coordination of those projects, and then ultimately producing the capital improvement plan. And what we've done this year is picked up with a set of solution offerings that allow you to track the status of those projects once they're funded, review the schedule, quality, and cost of those projects throughout the construction phases, and then ultimately report that project status to citizens. And so now you've got a comprehensive solution for capital project planning or capital improvement planning in your community. And much like the capital project planning solution it works on, we tried to handle all of the visible assets within the right-of-way, the underground assets as well too, and so it's really flexible in that respect. The other solution I'll mention is a new solution, and really our first foray into crime analysis workflows. And if you remember, last year we released a set of solutions that helped you take incident data or information you manage in your records management system, bring it out and load it into ArcGIS. Well, what this does is really build on that and provide you a set of tools that you can use for repeat and near repeat analysis. It's a foundation for predictive policing initiatives that are going on in communities all across the world. The interesting thing about this solution is a couple interesting things. One is you can visualize the results of that analysis in 2D and 3D and start to look at the impact of space and time in a three-dimensional representation. And it's the first time that this functionality is available in ArcGIS. Previously, it required third-party tools to do that analysis. And we've developed this in partnership with Chris Delaney on the public safety team and Spencer Cheney, who is a leading academic in this space and works with law enforcement agencies all over the globe on repeat and near repeat analysis. We were also fortunate to have a whole series of early adopters that have been working with us to refine the tools and really prove out the methodologies as we go. So it really is a unique set and will be one of many crime analysis tools we provide going forward. And I'll just wrap by saying at the same time we're also continuing to improve the overall quality of the solution site, and one of the big things we've been working on for this release is improving the gallery experience. So right now the gallery is kind of really hard. It's not hard to use, but it doesn't provide a whole lot of unique value. What you'll find in this new release is it's a really, really simple and straightforward way for you guys to discover the solutions that are available. You can think about it as a visual documentation page where you can either search for specific solutions, you can pivot the solutions in the gallery based on a whole bunch of different kind of domains. So maybe I'm just interested in the land record solutions and maybe land record solutions that use ArcGIS for desktop. I can quickly pivot those solutions and discover exactly what's available for me in my organization. And so you'll see a whole host of improvements to that gallery experience to make it really much more valuable and much easier to use. And then ultimately, we're continuously looking to provide additional help and updates to that help. And one of the big things we worked on this release is some help topics that guide you through a process to configure some of the service definitions we're providing in our service catalog and how might you do that in your organization, and just overall cleanup and improvements as well throughout the entire help system. So that's a quick overview of some of the other things we've been working on and we didn't have time to show you. Heather, how are we doing with Lindsay on her mute? Okay, I'll keep going then.
Yeah, she was going to try to see if it worked. If not, she's just going to present from my computer.
Heather?
Oh, we can.
Okay.
We can.
Oh, we can. Yeah, right. Yay. All right, so Lindsay, let me just wrap up this slide, and then we'll hand it over to you to show some of the web app builder work we've been doing. So, so let me just summarize with, and then we'll turn it back over to Lindsay. So today we showed you a whole host of new offerings that are available, and we didn't mention several. The ones in bold here are kind of larger font or other new offerings that you'll find in the solution. We've got an ArcGIS Pro workflow for crash analysis, a new collector configuration for field verification, We've got we're continuing to do work in 3D to help you provide realistic scenes in your community and begin to use 3D to do things like development review. You'll also find some enhancement to existing solutions. So we've been queuing up a set of enhancements for the address data management solution. You'll find some new construction tools and construction methods in there to help you do things like auto-increment addresses and quickly see the proposed address that's placed along the road and do other things like that. And then finally, as I mentioned early on, you'll see new releases of the add-ins, some of the tools and scripts, updates to the information model and the service catalog to kind of support all of the work we've been doing in this release. And so it's a pretty major release for us heading into June. And that's just a quick summary of everything that you'll be seeing coming in this release. So Lindsay, let me just stop sharing and turn it back to you, and then we can just wrap up with some things for the UC.
Sounds
Go ahead.
good. You can hear me, right?
Yep.
Okay. I'm a little paranoid. All right. So best for last, right? Yeah, so last November, we released a bunch of custom apps for Web App Builder to support elections. And in February, we took those custom widgets and put them into Web App Builder. And so now, as part of the June release, we've made some improvements and enhancements to those widgets to better support some of our ArcGIS for local government web applications. So the first thing that we added was the ability to create polar charts, and that's an enhancement to the related table charts, and some of the utility folks in our solutions group are going to be creating apps related to that. But the two major things we did was the Near Me widget, which we use in My Government Services, is we added the ability to make a buffer visible on the map, filter results of a selected layer on the map, zoom to the selected feature instead of the buffer, and then the ability to return intersecting polygons instead of buffer polygons. So that's a lot of technical speak, and I'll show you what that actually means when we look at the app. But we've made a lot of improvements just to support that traditional My Government Services workflow. So I know a lot of folks out there have deployed this app, as far back as 5 years ago, and now we've done a refresh and it works on Web App Builder. It's completely hosted in ArcGIS Online. And also something we've heard for a long time is folks wanted a school locator. So using Web App Builder and the district lookup widget, we made some improvements to support stack polygons. If you think about elementary schools, middle schools, high schools, there's multiple districts that overlay as stack polygons, so we added support for that. So let me show you. So My Government Services is a configuration of ArcGIS Online and Web App Builder for ArcGIS, and it's using the new Near Me enhancements. This application helps residents locate government facilities and obtain information about curbside or drop-off services that the government agency, whether that's a city or county, provides. So I live downtown in Naperville, and I wanted to see where the closest library is, because I just moved into town trying to figure out where things are. So if I search for my address, I'm going to see all the results that are near me within a buffer. And if I want to increase that buffer, I can just, say that I want to do 3 miles instead of 2 miles. I can see all the kind of government facilities that are around me. So I'm going to go to the library, and if I click on the library, I can see it's right around the corner. It's just about a quarter mile from my place. If I click on that, I'm going to get all kinds of information about the address, operational hours, and who to contact if I have any questions. Now I can go ahead and click on the Directions tab if I want, and I'll get routed to the nearest library. And once I get my directions, if I want to, I can print them, or I could use this application on my phone or tablet if I have that with me. And so instead of having to print, but you can print if you want to. And so if we go back, we can see all the results that we already did, everything that's close to me within 3 miles. As I scroll down, I can see my garbage collection here, and if I click on garbage collection, I can find out when I'm going to have my curbside pickup happen. And I can see that it happens every Tuesday, and there's no collection on these days and who to contact if I have any questions. So that's the My Government Services application. And that, again, is a configuration of Web App Builder and uses the Near Me widget. The next app that we're releasing, this is brand new. This is the School Locator application. And this is a configuration of ArcGIS Online and Web App Builder, and it uses a district lookup. So it allows residents or potential home buyers to determine which elementary school, middle school, secondary school their child should be attending based on that address. So this can be used by residents, potential residents, but also realtors who want to understand housing value, because that is related to school attendance zones as well. So if I'm a new resident, I've just moved in, and I want to find out what school my daughter Susie's going to go to, so I can go ahead and I can search for my new address. Or if I actually know where I live, I can just zoom in on the map and I can see I live right on the corner here of Oakton and Montgomery in Naperville, and I can see I've got 3 different attendance zones here. So I can see the elementary attendance zone. I want to find out where Susie's going to go to school. And I can see it's actually right across the park from our place, and you can see who in my neighborhood are actually going to be attending that same elementary school. There's about 750 students that are currently enrolled, and then you can also see the school district and information about that. Now my older son Jim is going into high school for the first time, so if I come back out, I can see high school.
Yep.
Okay. I'm a little paranoid. All right. So best for last, right? Yeah, so last November, we released a bunch of custom apps for Web App Builder to support elections. And in February, we took those custom widgets and put them into Web App Builder. And so now, as part of the June release, we've made some improvements and enhancements to those widgets to better support some of our ArcGIS for local government web applications. So the first thing that we added was the ability to create polar charts, and that's an enhancement to the related table charts. And some of the utility folks in our solutions group are going to be creating apps related to that. But the two major things we did was the Near Me widget, which we use in My Government Services, is we added the ability to make a buffer visible on the map, filter results of a selected layer on the map, zoom to the selected feature instead of the buffer, and then the ability to return intersecting polygons instead of buffer polygons. So that's a lot of technical speak, and I'll show you what that actually means when we look at the app. But we've made a lot of improvements just to support that traditional My Government Services workflow. So I know a lot of folks out there have deployed this app, you know, as far back as 5 years ago, and now we've done a refresh and it works on Web App Builder. It's completely hosted in ArcGIS Online. And also something we've heard for a long time is folks wanted a school locator. So using Web App Builder and the district lookup widget, we made some improvements to support stack polygons. If you think about elementary schools, middle schools, high schools, there's multiple districts that overlay as stack polygons, so we added support for that. So let me show you. So My Government Services is a configuration of ArcGIS Online and Web App Builder for ArcGIS, and it's using the new Near Me enhancements. This application helps residents locate government facilities and obtain information about curbside or drop-off services that the government agency, whether that's a city or county, provides. So I live downtown in Naperville, and I wanted to see where the closest library is, because I just moved into town trying to figure out where things are. So if I search for my address, I'm going to see all the results that are near me within a buffer. And if I want to increase that buffer, I can just, you know, say that I want to do 3 miles instead of 2 miles. I can see all the kind of government facilities that are around me. So I'm going to go to the library, and if I click on the library, I can see it's right around the corner. It's just about a 1/4 mile from my place. As I click on that, I'm going to get all kinds of information about the address, operational hours, and who to contact if I have any questions. Now I can go ahead and click on the directions tab if I want, and I'll get routed to the nearest library. And once I get my directions, if I want to, I can print them, or I could use this application on my phone or tablet if I have that with me. And so instead of having to print, but you can print if you want to. And so if we go back, you can see all the results that we already did, everything that's close to me within 3 miles. As I scroll down, I can see my garbage collection here, and if I click on garbage collection, I can find out when I'm going to have my curbside pickup happen. And I can see that it happens every Tuesday, and there's no collection on these days, and who to contact if I have any questions. So that's the My Government Services application, and that again is a configuration of Web App Builder and uses the Near Me widget. The next app that we're releasing, this is brand new. This is the School Locator application, and this is a configuration of ArcGIS Online and Web App Builder, and it uses a district lookup. So it allows residents or potential home buyers to determine which elementary school, middle school, secondary school their child should be attending based on that address. So this can be used by residents, potential residents, but also realtors who want to understand housing value, because that is related to school attendance zones as well. So if I'm a new resident, I've just moved in, and I want to find out what school my daughter Susie's going to go to. So I can go ahead and I can search for my new address. Or if I actually know where I live, I can just zoom in on the map, and I can see I live right on the corner here of Oakton and Montebury in Naperville. And I can see I've got 3 different attendance zones here. So I can see the elementary attendance zone. I want to find out where Susie's going to go to school. And I can see it's actually right across the park from our place. And you can see who in my neighborhood are actually going to be attending that same elementary school. There's about 750 students that are currently enrolled. And then you can also see the school district and information about that. Now my older son, Jim, is going into high school for the first time. So if I come back out, I can see high school attendance zone. And if I click on that, I can see that attendance zone is quite a bit bigger. And if I zoom in, you can see the boundary here, and you can see that the high school is actually quite far to our left. So I'm wondering if Jim's going to have to take the bus, or he's probably going to want to borrow my car. So I can go ahead and I can click on the directions, and as I'm getting directions, it'll show me the fastest route to get to the high school from my place. And so this is a school locator, and again, configuration of Web App Builder using the district lookup application. So as you can see, this is definitely a trend. We've been working really hard with the Web App Builder team to support additional ArcGIS for local government applications. We did that initially with elections, and it was really successful. And so just because it's really easy to configure and deploy the applications, and it also gives us the ability, whether that's like the city or county, the ability to customize the theme, the look and feel, and branding. It's so easy to use. We decided to kind of continue that trend. And so in the future, you're going to see us develop more and more kind of configurations of Web App Builder, and working with the development team to either extend the current widgets or build new widgets where necessary to kind of help support those traditional workflows that you see in local government. And it's been a really great partnership, so we would continue to do that and try to have a really great experience for hosting web applications, whether that's internally or publicly facing for cities and counties. And so in saying all that, are there any questions, Heather?
Yeah, Kyle had a question. When viewing the feature pop-up in the panel, is there a way to support viewing attachments?
Yeah, actually, it supports attachments. So if I had configured attachments here, so all the information you're seeing in this panel here on the right-hand side for both applications. This is all coming from the pop-up within a web map. And if you have an attachment, so if you have any sort of attachment, so if you had a picture of the school, if that's an attachment, you're going to see that displayed right under the pop-up. So it is supported in both widgets.
When you're talking about MyGov services, that's the Near Me widget that you're using, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Tim has a question. Can you turn off the pop-up if it gets in the way sometimes?
So the pop-up being the search location pop-up? I think, yeah. So if it's on there and it's in the way, I think it's a better example here. You can go ahead and just hit the X and it'll go away.
Okay. Are you able to add any layer to MyGov Services app? For example, could you migrate utility zones into the MyGov Services app?
Yeah, absolutely. So the nice thing about the My Government Services is a configuration of Web App Builder and Near Me. And the Near Me widget's going to support points, it's going to support lines, it's going to support polygons. The only requirement is that it's, it's like a point, line, or polygon, and it's going to be supported within this application. So if we had, railroads, like we actually had line features in here, you could search for those. You can search for polygons, you can search for points. So there's no real data requirements to configure My Government Services.
And all of the apps that you just showed are responsive, correct?
Correct. They're all, yeah, I forgot to say that, yes. And that's one of the reasons that we're using Web App Builder too, is it's good responsive design, so it supports smartphones, tablets, and desktop computers.
Great. I believe that is all the questions for now.
Yeah, and I can show you, just one second, hold on. I make this smartphone size. So you can see here that, it's a little bit square for a smartphone, but you can see here, if you click on attendance zone, you can kind of imagine what that's going to look like on a phone. So both My Government Services and, well, I shouldn't say that, all Web App Builder has its responsive design.
Great. Thanks, Lindsay.
Okay, great. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, thanks, Lindsay. So I'm just going to share my screen and just kind of wrap up with some events and activities we've got going on at the user conference this year. And the one thing I'll mention is that we are planning on posting a blog post with this information as well too in the next week or so. But just for everyone's information, this year we've got about 10 different tech workshops that are focused specifically on ArcGIS for local government and the solutions that we're providing. And you'll see them divided up into different domains. So if you're interested in the addressing solutions, there'll be a session for that, the land records, public works, or there's some overall sessions that give you a deeper dive into the solution, why we're doing it, and even how to configure it. We have a special interest group on Wednesday at lunchtime. One note, if you've been to that special interest group in years past, we provided lunch. This year there will be no lunch provided, but we've got a nice social on Wednesday evening that everyone's welcome to attend. And so, please do join us for that special interest group. It'll be a great chance for us to dive in and talk, and a great opportunity for you guys to interact with people that are at the user conference and leveraging the solutions. As I mentioned, we've got a social on Wednesday night. That's from 5:30 to 7 in the Hilton Bayfront, so we'd love to see you all there. And then the last thing I'll mention is that we have an area within the state and local government neighborhood, right, Lindsay? I think that's the right term. And you'll find a whole host of team members, many of the ones you talked to today, there, and we're able to answer questions and, talk about specific issues or challenges you're having there as well, too. And we'll be there all week long. So if you want to find these sessions now before we put that blog post out, just search for ArcGIS for local government in the user conference agenda and either look at the tech workshops or the demo theaters, and you can also find the special interest groups in the social as well. So thinking ahead, kind of past the user conference, we are starting to make some plans. There's some things we didn't get done heading into this release, and we're thinking about already for the second half of this year. Walt and Chris showed you two good examples of pretty large solution offerings around community events and mosquito control, and we know there's more work we need to do there. We're going to show you in a second here to wrap up some work that Chris has been doing with the City of New Orleans on a project called Adopted. I think you'll be really interested in. And really, kind of beyond incremental enhancements to the solution offering, what we're also beginning to think about is how can we start to really simplify the implementation and adoption of the solution. And so we're looking at new ways that you guys can deploy the solutions in your organization. You obviously heard a trend today that we're really looking at simple ways for you to stand up these services in your organization and begin to configure things quickly using web maps and configurable apps. You'll see that trend continue. And then also we're just continuing to incorporate additional platform offerings. You're hearing us talk a lot about ArcGIS Pro now and incorporating that. Workforce, you'll hear at the user conference a new product called Insights that I think you'll find very interesting. And so we'll just continue to drive, new offerings into it as well. So let's just wrap with one last demo. And I want Chris to show you an application we've been working on called Adopta. We're not going to ship this at the user conference, but we'll certainly be showing it and can talk to you about it. And we think it's really something pretty exciting that we'll deliver later in the summer. And so I wanted you just to kind of see it ahead of time and be thinking about how you could use it in your organization. So Chris, why don't you just wrap us up with a great demo of that?
Sure, thanks, Scott. All right, so I'll just quickly start with a little bit of background. So Scott mentioned that we've been working with the city in New Orleans. We actually worked with the city on another solution offering called Photo Survey that you might be familiar with. It's available currently on the solution site. But they approached us again about what we're calling Adopta, which is really an application that helps the city engage citizens but keeps the communication going as well. So what they wanted to do was use it for catch basins. And so imagine an application where you could author it for citizens. The citizen can go in and actually adopt a catch basin, help clean it out during storm events, that kind of thing. But it could be supported, could work with other asset types as well. So roads, parks, sidewalks are other examples of how this could work. It can be used for everyday, like normal operations, but also during emergencies or storm events. And so the city wanted to actually send out emails to people, to citizens, to say, hey, there's a storm coming, why don't you get out there and help us clean catch basins. But they wanted to do it all through email. So there's the mass emailer, you can send an email to everybody saying, help us out. But also when you log into the application, you do it with email. And when you update status, you can do it through email. So that's kind of the main method that the city wanted to put out there in order to get people continue to use the application and contribute that way. And so I guess we'll go ahead and just jump right out to the app, and I'll show it to you. We are in development, like Scott mentioned, so we're getting close. We'll have something definitely prototype phase for the user conference, but delivery over the summer. And this is the New Orleans application configured specifically for catch basins. Like I mentioned before, it could be configured for other workflows as well. But what you're seeing on the map here, this is a web application. What you're seeing on the map is available catch basins, which are denoted in green icons there. Yellow meaning catch basins that have been adopted. And then blue, you'll see in a second, are catch basins that are actually owned and adopted by you. So if I go back to the main screen here, what I can do if I want to, I'm a first-time user of the application, citizen that wants to go ahead and adopt a catch basin, I can go in and type my email address, and it gives me some instruction about how it works. If you're first time, just go ahead and enter your email and sign up, and it's going to not find me in the system because I'm a brand new user, so it's going to ask me, are you part of a team? So it has this team concept as well where you can, be part of a community group or a Boy Scout troop, or in my case, I'm part of the local government team. So it found the local government team in the system already. So I want to sign up and be part of that team. I'll click the sign in button, and it tells me, it sent me an email, please confirm you are who you are, and accept the program. So I'll go ahead and jump out to my inbox here. And you'll see that I have a brand new email. It says, welcome to the catch basin program. Thanks for participating. There's some guidelines. You have to go out there and remove debris from the grates. You have to ensure regular cleaning and then update status. And then keep monitoring your email, because we're going to be sending you email notifications about storm events and important things to know when you're part of this program. So if you like what you see and you want to continue and join up, go ahead and click log in. It'll redirect you to the application, and now you're logged in. So there was no password. I didn't really have to do anything to sign up in terms of specifying personal information or anything like that, or phone numbers. I simply just typed in my email address, and the system validated who I was. Now I can click on a catch basin. I can search, using the standard geocoding widget. I can also just click an existing catch basin that I know I want to adopt, and I can give it a nickname. So we're in New Orleans, so I'm going to call this one Louis Armstrong. And you can give it a name, if it's the catch basin across the street from my house, you can name it that, so that you know which one you're adopting, and also when you go to clean it, you know which one you've cleaned. So you can kind of give this catch basin an identity to you, and go ahead and adopt it. It's going to say thank you for adopting, and note that the icon now has changed to or the symbol's changed to a blue one, denoting that I've adopted it. I can also say I've gone out there today and I've cleaned it, and so I can mark the status clean. And I can even go back to my list of assets, which you see now I have this catch basin. It belongs to me. I've adopted it, the name, and then the status that it's checked and it's clean. And this is all configurable as well. So if it's a hydrant, you might want to mark, that it's not clean, but you remove the snow from it. So when somebody goes out in an emergency, they can find the fire hydrant quickly. And so that's basically adopt a catch basin. The next time I come to the application, it's going to ask for an email again, and it's going to send me a returning email message with all of the assets that I've adopted, and also gives me the option to update their status. So maybe I'll just show that real quick too. If I return to the app, now I've already logged in once. It knows who I am. It should know who I am. If I type in my email now and sign in, it's going to also send me an email. Since we're not storing any other information like passwords, it's going to send me another email confirming who I am. So I'll wait for this thing to come in. There it is. And now it knows that I have at least one catch basin adopted. I can mark its status directly in the email now, so I don't even have to go back to the app if I don't like. I can just update the status, and it's going to mark that catch basin clean. And if I go back to my asset list, you'll note that it's gotten the green check. So if I didn't mark that one clean in the previous session, it would have marked it clean now. It also takes the date in which it was cleaned and updates it in the system as well. So you can kind of monitor, as a city or a county, you can monitor how these things are being, if they're hydrants or if they're catch basins, how often they're being cleaned, and which ones have been updated. So that's kind of a sneak peek at Adopta. If there's any questions, feel free to shoot them my way. And yeah, thanks.
There is one question, Chris, from Kyle.
Okay.
How are the email notifications being sent? What is the back-end process?
So it's actually a GP service, and the GP service accepts your SMTP information for your email client server. So I'm using, of course, our internal Esri one, and it's just sending it through our Esri account, and that's why you saw it show up in my inbox. So that's the only thing you need to specify. You also specify in that service what you want to display in the email. So it's got some HTML text that you can configure as part of that. And you'll note that I actually customized it for this application to be very specific to catch basins. You're going to want your welcome email and your welcome back email to be very specific to the workflow that you want to use. And so that's all configurable as the back end. We also do, we are storing email addresses. We're not storing any other information, and that is a secured table, which nobody else can access. So it's definitely an important thing that New Orleans wanted to make sure that we had in there, was a secure user identity as part of the app too. So that's all held, securely and safe.
Another question, has there been any thought about using Facebook for the account authentication for the Adopter program?
We did think about that. Could we use social media accounts to do this? The city of New Orleans wanted to stress that not everybody that wants to do this or be part of the program has a social media account. So they just wanted to lower the barrier, I guess, for entry, and email was the most appropriate that they deemed for this app. And so that's kind of the idea that we went with. But definitely something we thought about. It's definitely not going to be something we're going to support with the first release, but email address we thought was the easiest way to go. So we did not support the others.
Perfect. That's all the questions for now about Adopta.
Okay.
Hey, Chris, there was one other question. So you talked about this a little bit briefly, but just comment on, they wanted to know, Daniel wanted to know, could you adopt streets or parks or trails? Can you just talk through some of the other, kind of how that works and how flexible it is?
Yeah, so sure, yeah. I mean, like I mentioned before, it could support many different workflows. It's really just a web map that you use to configure the app. So in this case, I'm using catch basins. If you had streets, you could do that. And if you had other layers that you wanted, like parks is a good one, you could basically configure the web map to support the workflow and then change the application's name, change the emails that are going back and forth. It's all configurable with the app. And so even like that button for clean, when I cleaned the catch basin, it could be that I picked up garbage in the park or whatever the case may be. So it's
or mode it,
very
whatever,
flexible.
right?
Yeah, whatever it is. So it's very flexible on how you want to configure it. We designed it that way to support not only the workflow that New Orleans wanted to use, but also like in the Midwest for snow removal around hydrants and things like that. We even had a couple of folks come to us about community or citizen watch groups that are responsible for a specific street in their neighborhood. They could use an application configured for that, an Adopta app configured for that, where they choose the street and say that they're the ones that are going to patrol it, and they've kind of adopted that as their patrol street, that kind of thing. But also just garbage on the freeway, adopt a road, adopt a road segment, that kind of thing is all doable.
So I think that's it, Heather. Those are all. Thank you, everyone, for sticking a little longer with us. As I mentioned earlier, we had a lot of stuff to show. We can certainly take any last questions that came in. Go ahead.
Yeah, there actually is one more, or there's a couple questions. Is there a specific location where you can grab the icons that you showed? And I'm assuming you're talking about symbols, Scott. I was out of my office at that point.
Yeah, probably. They're probably talking about the symbols in the maps and the icons in the apps, and definitely, yeah, we can, Heather, maybe you can just push out onto the meetup site a note where the solution symbology repo is.
Yeah, I can.
Yeah, and then definitely, we're making all of those symbols available not only in the solutions, but also as a GitHub repo. And more recently, we've been thinking about other ways we can get those symbols incorporated into the core products and maybe make them easier for you guys to access in your ArcGIS Online organizations too. So we're definitely working on that. The other question I know Dwight asked, and Chris, he may have jumped on right after you were talking, but Adopta can be used for any asset, Dwight. It doesn't have to be just catch basins or hydrants. So anything you guys would like to incorporate?
Amy has another question. The parcel drafter, will that be a web app? She's looking for something that will allow people to draw out legal descriptions without having to install DRafter.
Chris, you want to hit that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, that is the goal. So the goal is to move the functionality that was included with DRafter plus some new stuff into Parcel Drafter is what we're kind of calling it for now. And it'll have, your standard Kogo traverse tools. It'll have, the ability to close the traverse. It'll work against features versus Cadastral XML, which is what DRafter used. So it's a little more flexible in that you can just use simple features to store parcels versus, an XML that has to be kind of shipped back and forth. So more to come on that. We'll definitely have a demonstration of that for the user conference. And, we'll show it, of course, in the meetup too when we get there. But it's designed to be a web app versus a runtime app. So definitely a more flexible way to go forward.
There's no timeline for that right now?
At this point, sometime over the summer. But like I said, just like Adopta, we showed in a prototype of Adopta that we're planning to show at the user conference this year. We're going to do the same thing with Parcel Drafter, and like I mentioned, it is a very lightweight web app, and so hopefully we can be pretty agile about it, get it out, get some feedback, and if people have additional requirements or things they want to include, we can do that. So I don't think we're too far out, is what I'm saying. But we'll definitely have more details to come.
And even in the coming weeks, if you're interested in working with Chris on Parcel Drafter, just shoot him a note or contact him on the meetup site, and we'll get you an early look.
Yeah, I'd love to. And people have already asked about things like easements. How do I manage easements? Can I do that with this tool? And there's definitely things that we want to make sure that we address, and things that the D-Drafter didn't do. What are those things? And let us know.
Perfect. I think that is all of the questions. So I guess I'll just wrap up then, Scott, or do you have anything else to add?
Please do. No, I was just going to do the same thing. Go ahead.
Okay, perfect. So thanks everybody for hanging in and joining us on today's meetup. We look forward to seeing and hearing from you at our next meetup, which Scott mentioned at the Special Interest Group, which is on June 9th at the Esri International User Conference in San Diego Convention Center. So that is meeting room 4, and you can also check it out on the meetup site just if you missed that. Until then, have a great afternoon, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. June 29th, not June 9th.
Oh, my mistake. June 29th. Sorry about that. A little ahead of myself.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone.
We hope to see a lot of you guys at the social that night, too.
Yes.
That's right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.